Welcome to the A.I.P channel where anything is possible. Like how I said that. And we'll talk about anything and everything. And so more Mississippi history. And it's amazing what you can find. And you tell people, and a friend of mine, they seen like podcasts on the Great Wall of Mississippi. If you haven't seen that one or listened to that one, go back and check that one out too. Um, Something probably you haven't heard of. I told him about that. I mean, he listened to that, and then he turned around and told me about the subject for tonight. That's sometimes how I get the ideas for these stories and podcasts. So I get them from everywhere. I get them from other podcasts. I get them from talking with people who listen to my podcast. Just random searching, just having to random follow ups on stuff, and so that's why the AI, the AI, that's why the A.I.P podcast is all over the place because it's I can't stay in one little box. But tonight, we're going to talk about in 1964, 2,600 feet under the ground, the government detonated a 5.3 kiloton bomb. It was 1/4 the size of the bomb used on Hiroshima. Was detonated deep inside the Tatum Salt Dome in Mississippi. It says the Tatum Salt Dome explosion was part of a nuclear test to determine whether the U.S. had the ability to measure Soviet nuclear tests underground caves. And I'm like, what? There's actually, yeah. Um, they actually detonated it. The article I'm looking at got some poor guy that lived right nearby. Um, Pictures and the dishes and stuff fell off the wall, and it's like it probably felt like an earthquake, I'd imagine. You know, still 5.3 kiloton. That's a that's a big bomb. Um, the Defense Department and the Atomic Energy Commission, precursor of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and the Department of Energy, picked as their test site the Tatum Salt Dome, southwest of Hattiesburg. It was a huge, about a mile across and rather remote. Only about 250 families lived within 5 miles of the ground zero. So yeah, it's okay. If their kids start growing extra feet and toes, there's only 250 families. No big deal. For Mississippians too, it's okay. No big deal. They said they had 3 more blasts, 1 nuclear and 2 non-nuclear, followed over the next 4 years before researchers decided to abandon the site. Officials would later conduct a massive cleanup effort, dumping 1.3 million gallons of contaminated water and 10,700 cubic yards of contaminated soil into the cavity. Said workers who participated in the cleanup said they were exposed to high levels of radiation at the site in 1971. Bill Tech, who was chief of security, was later diagnosed with skin cancer, which the VA pathologists attributed to nuclear radiation. Today, the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality conducts annual tests of the surface water at the Tatum Dome to monitor slowly dropping levels of tritium, a mildly radioactive type of hydrogen that can seep into water supplies near nuclear power plants. It's like, man, what in the world? It crazy to think about. Right there in southern Mississippi, southwest Mississippi, they're over dropping nuclear bombs. You can see kind of like Arizona or something where it's all in the desert in the middle of nowhere, but it wasn't. Truly wasn't that far uh, from anywhere. I'm gonna post this on share this to the ones that are watching on the YouTube and the Rumble and Spotify. For the ones who, let's see, this one right here. Right here, right here. Um, yeah, you're right there. The Purvis. There's Hattiesburg. Hattiesburg, a pretty good sized city. Columbia, it ain't that far away. Um, yeah, there's quite a bit of people down there. Not enough, I guess, that they really worried about, but uh, government don't care anyway. Especially back then, it didn't matter. It did not matter, which is sad. Truly, truly sad. Um, More on the site is a 1,470-acre tract of land in Lamar County, Mississippi. It says 21 miles southwest of Hattiesburg, and it said the closest town is Purvis, which is about 10 miles east of the site. So it's like I said, it wasn't that far from cities and towns, at least. Hattiesburg, like I said, is a pretty good size city now. It's decent. Of course, Purvis is small, but still, crazy. The site is a forested region known as the longleaf pine belt of the Gulf Coastal Plain. The elevations in the area range from about 240 to 350 feet above sea level, and the site overlies a salt formation called the Tatum Salt Dome. Said no one lives within the boundary of the site itself, of course. I mean, you couldn't drill no wells in there for sure. I see, sure enough, was having two-headed frogs and all kinds of crazy stuff. The Velo Uniform program was part of the DoD research and development, intended to improve the capability of detecting, monitoring, and identifying underground nuclear detonations. As part of that program, nuclear tests were conducted near Fallon, Nevada, Project Shoal, and Amchitka Island, Alaska, Project Longshot, and near Hattiesburg, Mississippi, Salmon and Steering. The Salmon and Steering tests were designed to evaluate the country's ability to effectively interpret seismic signals from detonations at small, medium. It says it was important to determine our ability to recognize the testing treaty was being followed. It said the second nuclear test was called Stirring, and it was December 3rd, 1966. Consisted of the detonation of a 380-ton nuclear device suspended in the cavity created by the Salmon test. So they blew a big old hole in the middle of this damn thing. And so after they blew the big old hole, then they dropped a smaller bomb in there and blew us some more up. So 2 methane oxygen explosions were conducted in the Salmon cavity. And one they named a dial tube on February 2nd, 1969, and the other named humid water on April 19th, 1970. Each test had a yield of approximately 315 tons. They keep going down, at least. Which, like I said, it wasn't. It was not as the last two were not nuclear, so that's the good part. If you're looking on YouTube, here's a kind of a cross diagram of the site. Here's the aquifer, the entry, the borehole, which they plugged. It's the salt dome, it's the test cavity. They sit there. But the bad thing is, if you're looking on this PDF here I got from energy.gov right here, you can see it on the thing. It's showing aquifers all through there. So all kinds of water, more than that. There's 2A, there's 2B, there's 3A. So, 7 aquifers. And they over here blowing nuclear freaking bombs in it and contaminating water. It says right there, that little circle, showed the fluid level and the highly radioactive material. That's that little bit right there. But hopefully, hopefully that salt dome is holding all that nuclear material in and it's not getting to everybody. Man, crazy things they did back in World War during that time. And this was 66. Crazy. Said the salt dome folding contained all the products of the detonation and no radionuclides were released to the surface. Thank goodness. Radioactive fusion products and other materials generated during the tests are contained in the glass-like material left behind by the detonation and in the salt near the cavity. Following each test, the reentry holes are drilled into the test cavity to collect scientific data and to emphasize in-place devices. Said these drilling operations generate waste, which include contaminated drill cuttings and drilling fluid. In addition, support operations generate other contaminated materials. Said the test site support activities require fuel, electricity, sanitation, waste storage, water disposal, and the use of hazardous materials. Said the site cleanup and decommissioning activities began in 1971. Contaminated buildings and equipment were shipped to the Nevada National Security Site for disposal. Contaminated soils, slurry with fresh water and other liquid materials disposed in the underground test cavity. Liquid waste from the salmon re-entry operations were injected into a deep brine aquifer, known as Aquifer 5, for disposal. Liquid waste from the Sterling re-entry operation were solidified and shipped to Oak Ridge, Tennessee for burial. And miscellaneous sanitary waste were buried on site in shallow pits, excavated for soils to replace contaminated soils. These pits were subsequently covered with clean soil and graded. A high water table elevation prevented complete evacuation and removal of contamination at ground zero. In the shallow mud pit less than 100 meters away, the mud pit excavation was backfilled with clean soil and reseeded. It said the cleanup ended in June the 30th of 1972, the day the AEC site lease with the original landowner expired. A new 10-year lease agreement gave DOE exclusive rights to regulate and control subsurface penetration and allow continued site access to conduct monitoring activities. A new 10-year lease agreement gave DOE exclusive rights to regulate and control subsurface penetration and allow continued site access to conduct monitoring activities. It said the lease was later renewed for another 10-year period. And it said during the 1972 to 1992 lease period, the site was used as a private timber plantation. So they were using the trees off of it. Hope it wasn't going to toilet paper yet. Hey, that's where all the colon cancers come from contaminated trees they got out of that damn thing. Radioactivity remains in the rumble in the test cavity that is within the salt structure. The salt is nearly impermeable and has no capacity to transmit water. Therefore, the salt structure provides a geologic isolation to prevent the radioactivity from migrating. So, hopefully the salt's doing what they're saying it's doing. Keeping things safe. It says shortly after the creation of the DOE Environmental Management Program in 1989, concerned citizens, the state of Mississippi, and congressional leaders raised questions about the site. When DOE acquired the site in 1992, the agency initiated a series of studies to verify site conditions and investigate whether residual contamination remained not been detected in previous investigations. Interesting. It's like, they keep saying they're going to do a lease. Why didn't the government just buy the land? Because, it's not a whole lot you could probably really do with that land. You can't put houses on it. You can't do anything with it. You're going to have to keep it blocked off, I'd imagine, just in case something does happen. Something like an earthquake happens and ruptures that salt structure. Then it's going to release all that shit. I don't know. I don't think they didn't really think through very well. It says results confirmed that decommissioning of the surface resulted in conditions protective of human health and environment. Analysis showed that the detonation products were not migrating and the deep aquifer was not a source of exposure. Soil samples collected during the remedial investigation indicated that some residual contamination exceeded levels considered suitable for unrestricted use, particularly in the vicinity of surface ground zero. However, the human health risk assessment concluded that the recreational visitors and workers in the area, e.g., park rangers, were not to be subject to unacceptable risks. Furthermore, the assessment indicated that at least 95% of the residual site risk is due to naturally occurring radioactive material and not site-related contamination. Where's the damn natural occurring radioactive material come from? In 2010, DOE transferred surface ownership of the Salmon site to the state of Mississippi, so the site could be used as a wildlife refuge and working demonstration forest. DOE remains the rights of the subsurface of the Salmon site property and will continue monitoring of the surface water and groundwater to ensure protection for public health and environment. It says they have institutional controls in place to ensure protection of human health and the environment. And it said DOE has placed a deed restriction on the land parcel which prohibits excavation, drilling, or removal of material without prior approval from the DOE. Angle drilling from outside the property boundary to within the property boundary is also prohibited. And they also have a long-term hydrologic monitoring program from 1972. So beginning in 2019, the sampling interval will change to every 5 years. Water samples collected for analysis and signature radionuclides and nuclear detonations. It says monitoring wells near the areas burned. I can't even talk. Buried drilling fluids are also sampled for organic compounds and metals that may remain contained in pockets of the burial material. It says the state of Mississippi participates in the DOE sampling program is on site during sampling events. So I guess they did, now the state of Mississippi has it. So I was saying I knew couldn't do shit with it. Ain't no point in nobody having it, owning it. It says the state of Mississippi holds a title to the Salmon site surface real estate. And he said, but DOE, like I said a little bit ago, owns the subsurface. Interesting stuff there. Interesting stuff. It's amazing. You never know. you you might be right down the road from that site and didn't even know that you're living right beside some nuclear waste. Like I said, hopefully the salt holds it all in, but makes me wonder if we had an earthquake, it's a possibility. Had an earthquake and that cracked that salt dome, it'd leak. But they weren't worried about it in 66. Let's just blow some shit up and see what happens. They didn't care. They still don't care. Not one damn bit. They don't care about us. Not one bit. Well, what do you think on that? Here's what I was talking about at the beginning. His poor dude come home and his damn house all tore to hell. Like, damn. Poor dude. Well, what do you think about that one there? That's kind of a lot of reading, just reading them the article and then a couple articles there, and or didn't know how else to do this because like I said I had never heard of this. I said things that make you go, Didn't he know it had happened? Of course, it's well before my time. All the white beard and everything. I'm not that old. Do you think they're still doing like crazy tests like that around our homes and stuff, and not letting us know, or then they finally, with all these agencies and stuff, that we actually being a little more? Are they being a little more safer now? I don't know. It's a good question.
7 tests were conducted under the Vela Uniform series, including the only 2 atomic bombs to be detonated east of the Mississippi. A huge underground salt dome, located 21 miles southwest of Hattiesburg, Mississippi, was the home of 2 nuclear detonations named Salmon and Sterling.
I was living in Jacksonville, Florida at the time. Of course, I was monitoring this since this is my old home area right here. A lot of my people lived here at the time. A lot of my friends still live here. At this particular site in the 60s and 70s, the Atomic Energy Commission did some underground nuclear testing.
Salmon was the first of 2 tests conducted at the same site in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, as part of the Vela Uniform program. Significant measurements were taken in the seismic area to determine what kind of signals were generated by an underground test. Sterling, the second event conducted at the same location, was detonated inside the cavity generated by the Salmon event. They were looking at the issue of decoupling. The idea behind decoupling was that you would detonate the device either in an excavated cavity or one generated by a previous test to determine if that cavity would alter the signal, the seismic signal in some fashion.
That was during the time when we were trying to verify with the Russians that we would stay within the limits of the test ban, that the test would be less than 150 kilotons.
A television camera was lowered over 2,700 feet below the Mississippi landscape to record the effects of the nuclear detonation. The camera reveals an almost perfect sphere formed deep in the salt dome. 3.5 months after the test, the temperature inside the cavity is still almost 400 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to burn the paint off the surface of the camera.
They said it seemed like the end of the world was coming. It looked like a wave in the ocean coming toward them. The citizens that lived around here, plus some of the technicians on site, tell me they were overwhelmed at the size of the blast. It was humongous. It was a whopper.
But I said, what do y'all think on this one? Hope y'all like this one. Like I said, it was a little different. I haven't heard nothing about it, so I wanted to do this for y'all. And as always, if I see something that I don't know nothing about, I'm sure I'm not the only one. So, hell, let me throw this out here and see and stick and see how it goes, But as always, I appreciate y'all listening. Please make sure you like, share. I'm on the YouTube, the Rumble, Spotify, Apple, all your favorites. Spreaker. I'm on the Trouble Minds Radio Network. I'm syndicated on it with a bunch of other amazing shows. The Digital Broadcasting, KUAP. Check it out. Like I said, there's a bunch of amazing shows on there. The Trouble Minds, of course, show is on there. Salcedo Paranormal and so much more. It's amazing the different minds and different thought processes and stuff on there. And give it a like and give it a share and check it out. Maybe you learn something today. But as always, I appreciate y'all listening. And as always, y'all keep on keeping on. And peace and chicken grease. Y'all be good.